Hello everybody and welcome to News Channel 6's Hidden History, celebrating Black History Month. I'm Brad Means.
And I'm Jenny Montgomery. Tonight we're going to take a look at some events in Black history rarely discussed, events that impacted our lives here.
You know, African Americans have made great contributions to our country for centuries. We know the names: Rosa Parks, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr. But what about the names you don't know?
During the next 30 minutes, we're looking at some of Black history's hidden moments, the ones not talked about as much, but still with lasting effect on generations to follow.
Let's take a journey back in time as we look at America's hidden history.
Throughout this 30 minutes, we'll take you on a walk through history, and we're going to start right here in Augusta, in front of Springfield Baptist Church, and we'll talk about the impact of music throughout Black history.
We'll also look at how barbecue is being used to break down racial barriers, and how a place where tragedy occurred is being converted into a place to pay tribute to Black history. Our journey begins when we come back in 2 minutes. We are standing in one of the most important pieces of Black history right here in Augusta, Springfield Baptist Church. It was here that one of the most well-known Black colleges in America was formed.
News Channel 6's Jerika Young takes you back 150 years to the birth of Morehouse College.
I chose to go to Morehouse because it has a great history, and I wanted to follow, other successful African-American men who have led the trails before me.
Some individuals here call it the call of the ancestors, but it was really the cultural force and the reputation that Morehouse has had of educating African-American men and giving me a purpose to go out in the world and be an active agent of change.
I think people need to understand that African-American or Black history is everyone's history. You cannot talk about American history or world history without including the Black experience.
The men of Morehouse College include men who made an impact, from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to educator Benjamin Mays, from actor Samuel L. Jackson to former Sergeant General Lewis Sullivan, and Dr. Marcellus Barksdale.
Sometimes people discount or dismiss African American history. It's just for the Black folk. It's not. It's for everybody.
Who graduated from Morehouse College in 1965 and has taught history there for more than 40 years. He told us Springfield Baptist Church was the oldest Black church in the United States.
But Morehouse was founded in that church in 1867. At least that's part of the story. It was actually organized in the home of one of the deacons of Springfield. They got to the church on the evening of the 14th of February, 1867. It was challenging at first. They didn't have any money. They didn't have any faculty.
Classes were held at the basement of the church for school. He says church leader William Jefferson White got the college's first 3 teachers. When
the Civil War ended in 1865, there was a rush to educate African Americans. And by educating some, the hope was, and it worked, that they would then educate others.
Dr. Barksdale says the school moved more than 150 miles from Augusta to Atlanta after an invitation from a pastor there.
And it wasn't just that Frank Quarles, who was the pastor at Friendship Baptist Church in Atlanta, invited the school to come to Atlanta, but it was also because of the racial tensions in Augusta, Georgia, that kind of pushed the school out. The Reconstruction period had come to an end in 1877. And there was a period of redemption where white Southerners were trying to redeem or take back their rightful legacy. And so there were tensions in Augusta.
In 1897, the name changed to Atlanta Baptist College, and in 1913 to Morehouse College. And by that time, students could get a 4-year degree.
And it was named for Henry Lyman Morehouse because he was the executive secretary or the corresponding secretary, and they raised money for the Black colleges, including Morehouse.
More than a century later, the college continues to evolve.
I feel like I want to leave my own legacy of, being able to serve the community and also being able to give back one day.
I believe that my call and my purpose has become even clearer. It has helped me become very aware of who I am and where I stand in history and how I can move forward and move my people forward and be a leader.
It's very important that we make sure that we continue the work you're doing and expose our citizens to the Black experience, and the history of Morehouse is just a part of that.
You know, students and faculty returned to Augusta to celebrate the school's 150th anniversary.
That huge event was held right here at the church. And still to come on our special Hidden History.
Street music then and now tells the story of an enslaved people and their quest for freedom. But it has also influenced a new generation of musical artists. Justin Campbell shows us how next. Hidden History, celebrating Black history.
Welcome back to News Channel 6's Hidden History, celebrating Black History Month. The musical contributions of the Louisiana African American community are without a doubt rich.
Yeah, you know, the culture of Louisiana itself is in large part tied to its music, and African Americans have been at the center of the Louisiana music scene, from jazz to blues to present-day hip-hop.
Justin Campbell explains how Black musicians have influenced music across the United States.
Our story begins at Jackson Square in New Orleans, across the street from the Mississippi River.
All this music that we playing out here, it come from slavery days. You know, it's like with our forefathers and everything brought from Africa to the streets of New Orleans. And well, if you look Miami, you can see the Mississippi River, and that's where all the slaves used to get off the boats at.
Kenny Terry blowing his trumpet, along with his band members beating their drums and playing the tuba loud and proud at Jackson Square.
And this is what we do to keep our culture going throughout New Orleans, you know what I'm saying?
They're mainly playing New Orleans jazz music, also known as Dixieland. Jazz replaced ragtime music. The new jazz music had an African-based rhythmic pattern such as stomping and clapping, a West African influence, and a European classical music entwined. The music originated by African Americans, which emerged out of New Orleans and took over at the turn of the 20th century.
It's a mixture of Dixieland, jazz, all that at the same time. It's a mixture of them. Louis Armstrong inspired me, and it's important because it helps me become a better person in life.
But before ragtime or jazz, stars like Louis Armstrong, the music of Louisiana started with slaves. I'm standing in Congo Square here in Louis Armstrong Park in New Orleans, where as many as 500 to 600 enslaved Africans would come here and congregate on the Sunday afternoons in the 1700s all the way up into the 1800s, where they would dance, sing, drum, and make music to what we now know as present-day African American music.
They brought their own music. They brought their own instruments.
Mike Shepard, president and managing member of the Louisiana Music Hall of Fame in Baton Rouge, says blues, swing, and jazz all originated in Congo Square.
That has been a tradition down there since the 1600s, since Congo Square opened that up and brought the rhythmic blends that New Orleans became famous for.
In musical contributions of African Americans in Louisiana from Congo Square didn't stop there.
That really made the music of the whole United States. And everything came from that. The rock and roll, everything except the country.
Kenneth Terry and his band at Jackson Square plan to carry on their forefathers' musical contributions.
What we do is we keep the music alive.
Today, hip-hop has replaced jazz and blues as the voice of young African Americans. In New Orleans, I'm Justin Campbell.
And if you're a fan of hip-hop music, know this. Mike Shepard, the president and managing partner of the Louisiana Hall of Fame, says it would not be possible to have present-day hip-hop really without the contributions of Congo Square.
Congo Square also provided enslaved blacks a place where they could express themselves spiritually.
Still ahead on Hidden History, good food plus good company equals good conversation.
A restaurant in Little Rock, Arkansas has that equation figured out. It's kept them in business for all these years. We're taking a look and grabbing a to-go plate at this wonderfully delicious and yet hidden part of Black history.
Did you know barbecue can break down racial barriers? Yeah, it's been happening for years in a little town called Marianna, Arkansas.
A town in the heart of the Arkansas Delta. Since 1964, one black man has brought people in the community, black and white, together with a simple barbecue sandwich.
Inside this little white building, a worker takes embers from a fireplace and puts them into a barbecue pit to smoke the meat. It's early in the morning, but James Harold Jones has already started selling his popular pulled pork barbecue. And this is what, lunch?
Breakfast.
Jones opened his business in this location in 1964, but its history is much older than that. It's believed to be the oldest black-owned restaurant in the South.
It's been in the family over 150 years. My granddaddy's uncle once started.
He used the same secret barbecue sauce then used today.
What's the secret to this recipe of yours?
What I put in it?
And Jones's father put the same thing in it.
I started helping him out 14 years old, now I'm 71. So I've been in it for a little while.
A family tradition that doesn't care how much money you make.
How are you, James? About 10 pounds.
Or what color you are. The only color that matters here, reddish orange.
I've been here since about 74. It's a special trip every year to come here and see my friend.
Mayor Jimmy Williams remembers Marianna when farming and the factory where he worked for 40 years thrived. It brought in big-name executives.
And when they'd come in on company plane before they leave, they'd say, well, let's run down Jones's and get some barbecue.
But the taste draws people from all walks of life.
You ever get tired of brunch?
No. The only thing I get tired of doing is interviews.
He gets a lot of attention these days after winning the prestigious James Beard Award for his American Classic. It's the so-called Oscars of culinary work. He's the only person in the state to ever win it. It now hangs a little lopsided above the window that peers into his kitchen. But it didn't take a national award to prove his pulled pork sandwiches on Wonder Bread with a little coleslaw are good.
It's like no other barbecue you ever eat.
This guy told us he's been eating here for 53 years.
Hey, it's so good, it damn near make you run a red light.
Ironically, in a town where most black people live in poverty, Jones's Barbecue pumps money into the economy and brings visitors to the heart of the Arkansas Delta who might not otherwise come here.
$4, $7. So you get two of them.
But you better get here early.
You don't have any more?
I won't have no more until after 1 o'clock.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. See, that's the way it happens, like that. See, I never know from one day to the next day how big a crowd I'm gonna have. When it's out, it's just out.
Until tomorrow, when the fire's burning and the meat is smoking, as it has for the last 150 years.
In an age where most restaurants are all about variety, you'll only find two things on the menu at Jones Barbecue.
Yep, barbecue and barbecue sandwich. You know, the National Civil Rights Museum in Memphis, Tennessee pays tribute to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It was built on the site where he was assassinated.
But it also pays tribute to the dozens of lesser-known characters who played important roles in the civil rights movement. You'll hear some of their stories when we return.
It was at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee, where the life of the most iconic leader of the civil rights movement came to an end. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated on the balcony of his hotel room April 4th, 1968.
Leaders in Memphis decided to transform that motel from a place of tragedy to a place of tribute to honor the movement Dr. King fought so hard for.
Kelly Cook and the museum's lead educator now take us on a tour to show us some of those hidden heroes.
You've heard of Martin.
I'll have you arrested.
And you've certainly heard of Rosa Parks, who so famously refused to give up her seat on a Montgomery bus to a white woman in 1955.
And this is what would later become known as the birth of the civil rights movement.
But what if I told you the household name of Rosa Parks could have been replaced with Claudette Colvin or Mary Louise Smith?
Both, like Rosa Parks, decided not to give up their seat to a white person on the bus.
And they did it the same year and in the same city as Rosa Parks. 15-year-old Colvin was arrested in March, Smith in October. These unsung heroes may be lost in many history books, but not here at the National Civil Rights Museum, where everywhere you turn is a hidden hero waiting to be found, like Bayard Rustin.
Well, he does get lost in the shuffle.
Who spoke before more than 250,000 people at the March on Washington in 1963.
He was Martin Luther King Jr.'s right-hand man behind the scenes.
And he had the pleasure of speaking after Dr. King. Talk about a hard act to follow.
He goes on right after arguably one of the most important speeches that's ever given in the history of the United States.
But King's I Have a Dream speech might have never happened had it not been for Rustin.
Bayard Rustin, if you're looking at the March on Washington as a motion picture, he was not only the director, he was also the producer.
The Westchester, Pennsylvania native had his hand in everything from training security to writing slogans to even, yes, the lineup of the speeches that day.
He had to remain behind the scenes because he was openly gay. And in the 50s and 60s, it was extremely taboo.
But nowhere was it more violent than Birmingham, where a bus carrying Freedom Riders was bombed and dogs were sent after children. It's where Dr. King did some of his most important work. Dr. King was even arrested in Birmingham, penning a letter from a Birmingham jail when he was arrested for defying a court order prohibiting marches. But he would have never come to Birmingham if it hadn't been for a man named Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth. Reverend Shuttlesworth was leading the fight for civil rights in the most segregated city in America. His home bombed, a target of the Klan, while leading marches and protests. Shuttlesworth co-founded the SCLC, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, with Dr. King, and encouraged his friend to help him in the fight in the city known as Birmingham.
Had it not been for the courage and insistence of Fred Shuttlesworth to invite Dr. King to Birmingham, it's unsure if segregation would have ended as a result of the Civil Rights Bill of 1964, signed the following summer.
The fight for civil rights had many faces, and they have a home where they can forever be remembered.
The National Civil Rights Museum also prides itself in being a meeting place for groups currently involved in civil rights issues.
From traveling art exhibits to peaceful protests surrounding the Black Lives Matter movement, museum leaders want the museum to remain relevant.
We want to thank you for taking this journey with us, and we hope you learned a lot about many hidden Black history moments.
Although we've highlighted just a few, there are hundreds, thousands more moments waiting to be discovered.
Moments you can discover yourself if you look closely enough. I'm Jenny Montgomery.
I'm Brad Means. Thanks for joining us.